and we are ready for another lesson. Just like the other lessons, this one is divided into two. Both lessons are going to be looking at types of sentences. We've gone through all of these in class. We did them last year as well, briefly, and I want to go through them with you today again. So have a look at the definitions and the examples very carefully, and you will be able to do this. Work slowly to prevent making mistakes, because some of the concepts are quite difficult. But remember, we have done this in class, so you know what you're doing, and I believe in you, and I know that you can do it. All right. So before we move on, make sure you've got your workbook or your jotter to write in. You can put today's date. I said it's the 15th of May. And then you can put your heading, which is looking at sentences, and we can move on. Please remember to work in blue pen, and where I've used color, you are more than welcome to use color or underline. Right, so like I told you, we're looking at different types of sentences. Today we are going to look at simple, compound, and complex sentences. We've done all of these in class, but if you don't remember, it's fine. I'm going to take you through a definition and an example for each. Pay very close attention to these and make sure you understand before moving on. So let's have a look at a definition for simple sentences. It says it's called an independent clause. Now you've heard that word before. If I'm independent, it means I can do things on my own. If I'm dependent, it means I need help. So an independent sentence is a sentence that makes sense on its own. It contains a subject and a verb. Now, just because it's a simple sentence doesn't mean it's always a short sentence. So be very careful with that. You're looking for sentences that make sense on their own, but only contain a subject and a verb. Okay, so let's have a look. An example. Amo plays soccer in the morning. Amo is my subject and plays is my verb. So therefore, I've got an independent clause because it's a sentence that makes sense on its own. And in my independent clause, I've got a subject and a verb. Let's have a look at a definition for compound. It's slightly different to simple, but uses the same ideas. So, a compound sentence contains two independent clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction. Now, what's a coordinating conjunction? We did this in class. Remember, I told you that having specific sentences means I'm using specific conjunctions to join them. So two independent clauses, so two sentences that make sense on their own, are joined by coordinating conjunctions. There's a very easy way to remember this, and Mrs. Morgan's going to tell you this way in grade 6 as well. So have a look. Coordinating conjunction, I remember as fanboys. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. So normally when I see those conjunctions, I already know, oh, I'm looking at compound sentences, which means I have two independent clauses. So these sentences make sense on their own. So if you're unsure when it comes to the practice, you can think about that. What type of conjunction has been used? Have they used anything from fanboys? Okay, then both sentences are independent. So I've given you an example. Amo was playing soccer, so, which is my coordinating conjunction, Nancy watched TV. Both of those make sense on their own. If I had to say to you, Amo was playing soccer, you would know exactly what I was saying. And if I had to come up to you and say Nancy watched TV, you would again know exactly what I was saying. They make sense, therefore they are independent sentences. I want you to take this note down. Please take the heading simple, compound, and complex sentences, and then you can take these two notes down before we move on to complex sentences, the definition, and an example. Okay, so we've gone over a definition for simple and compound sentences. Please make sure that you took that note down. You'd have to pause the video and take it down, and now you're on the slide. So if you haven't done that, go back and do that for me, please. Right, now we're looking at complex. Now, complex again, I'm looking at independent and dependent clauses. So like I said, an independent clause is a sentence that makes sense on its own, and a dependent clause does not. So let's see what makes up a compound sentence. Right, compound sentences combine an independent clause with one or more dependent clauses. So remember I said dependent clauses don't make sense on their own. And they use subordinate conjunctions or subordinating conjunctions. Alright? Your subordinate conjunctions would be your conjunctions left over from your coordinating conjunction, which was fanboys, to help us remember. Okay, so I put some examples there for you because although, then, unless, and if, we've gone over all of these in class, so you should have these in your memory. Okay, let's have a look at an example. I did not see Debbie today because she was late. The part of my sentence that makes sense is going to be the independent clause. So the part that makes sense on its own is, I did not see Debbie today. Okay, then I've got a subordinating conjunction, which is because. I put it in bold for you. And then the dependent clause is the part of the sentence that doesn't make sense on its own. And that part is, she was late. If I come up to you and say she was late, you don't know who I'm talking about and you don't know what I'm referring to. So it's a dependent clause. It doesn't make sense on its own. It needs the independent clause to help it make sense. Okay, so if I say she was late, it doesn't make sense. But if I read it all together, I did not see Debbie today because she was late. Now it helps the sentence to make sense. So let's have a look at things to remember when it comes to complex sentences. An independent clause contains a subject and a verb. Remember, we saw that from simple sentences. Therefore, it makes sense on its own. A dependent clause only contains a subject or a verb, so it has one or the other, not both. Therefore, it does not make sense on its own. Okay, so a simple revision would just be simple sentences are one independent clause. A compound sentence is two independent clauses. And a complex sentence is one independent and one or more dependent clauses. So that's it in a summary. Before you move on, pause the video, take the note down. You don't need to take the heading down again. You can just write complex sentences and then copy what is on the slide. I know you're doing a lot of writing today, but I want to encourage you to keep on going and keep on working hard, and we'll be done before you know it. Right, I want us to do some quick practice just to make sure we understand before we move on to something a little bit more complicated for your practice. Right, is the sentence dependent or independent? So that's what we're going to be looking at now. Remember, dependent clauses do not make sense on their own and independent clauses do. A good way to remember it is that adults are independent. They can live on their own. It makes sense to see them alone. And children are dependent. They need an adult and a parent to help them and assist them. Okay, so you are going to write the sentences and the answer in your workbook. I've got an example here for you. As she was hungry. Now, if I come up to you and I say, as she was hungry, if it doesn't make sense and you're thinking, oh, that sounds rather strange, you're going to write the word dependent next to it. If you say the sentence and you think, oh, that makes lots of sense, then it would be independent. All right, so get that done. Good luck, work hard, pause the video, and then I'm going to pop up the answers once you're finished. Okay, here are your answers. Number 1, because she was late is dependent. Number 2, you must work hard is independent. It makes sense on its own. Number 3, Zach quickly ate his lunch. That's independent. It makes sense on its own. 4, if you want to succeed. If I want to succeed, what? That sentence is confusing, so it's dependent. It doesn't make sense on its own. Number 5, so he must rest. Why must he rest? So that's dependent because it doesn't make sense on its own. And number 6, Zane plays soccer. That's independent and makes sense. One thing I want you to note, dependent clauses start with a conjunction. So in front of each of these sentences, if your sentence started with a conjunction, it should be dependent. So number 1, number 4, and number 5 should all be dependent because they started with a conjunction. This is because they come after the independent clause most of the time, and you've got your independent clause, your conjunction, and then your dependent clause. Okay, take down a correction if you need to, and then we can move on. Right, I want you to do one more bit of practice before we finish up today. Now, the practice isn't on the video. It's on a separate worksheet that I've emailed to your parents. So before you start it, here are your instructions. Do the worksheet titled Simple, Compound, and Complex Sentence Practice. You may have your notes next to you to help you as you go through it. Your heading is simple, complex, and compound sentence practice. You can put that in color if you like. Right. Do not write all the sentences down. Just number and write down your answers in your workbook so that you can check your work. And then the next one is that questions are on page 1. So your questions are on page 1 and then your answers are on page 2. Don't skip to your answers. You're only cheating yourself. Remember, you want to make sure that you understand because you're going to be using this work in grade 6 and grade 7 as well. So to make sure that you understand, do it on your own and then go back. If you put in corrections, it doesn't matter. Rather make the mistakes now and learn from them, and then later on when you do a test, you'll know exactly what you're doing. Okay, so you're going to do that worksheet. Like I said, you're going to put your heading. Don't write the sentences, just number your answers. So number 1, you put your answer next to it, and then when you're done, you can go mark and see how well you did and give yourself a mark there. All right, good luck. You can do it. Keep on working hard and go slowly through them. Don't just rush because some of them can be quite tricky. Okay, you are finally done for today. Well done. I hope you did well. Remember to give yourself a mark for your last activity that you did on the worksheet page that I sent separately. Make sure that you understand everything before being finished with today's lesson. Check that you've taken all the notes down. You should have a definition for simple, compound, and complex, as well as examples, and then 2 activities. I'll see you tomorrow where we're going to go over more types of sentences that you've done before, and you should know all of them. Okay, so take a breath, have a break, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, grade 5s, like I told you, today we are going to be looking at sentences. So before I start going through everything, please write down today's date. Then your heading is other types of sentences, and then we will get going. So pause the video to do that, and then press play again to carry on. Alright, we went through these in class, and just like last year and this year, I gave you a difficult name and then told you that there was an easier way to explain them. And we went through these loads and loads and loads of times, so you should know them, and I want to see how much you remember. So let's have a look. On the left hand side, I've got declarative, interrogative, imperative, and exclamatory. Those are all sentences that we've been through before, but those names are quite difficult. I gave you easier names to remember them by, and those names are on the right hand side. So what I want you to do is match the sentence names on the left with their other name on the right and make them correct. So all of the names on the right I've jumbled up. They're not in the correct order. I want you to make them correct. So in your workbooks, you're going to write a declarative and then find the correct number that belongs to declarative. Is it question, exclamation, statement, command? Which one is it? And then you write that next to declarative. Once you have that, I'll show you your answers. So pause the video, get down your answers, and then I'll show you. I'm sure you're going to do well in this. If you really can't remember, page back in your workbook and give it a look, okay? Alright, here are your answers. A, with declarative, it is a statement, right? I'm just giving you any kind of fact. Today it is sunny. B, interrogative, is a question. What are you doing? I'm interrogating you. That's how I explained it to you in class. C, imperative, is a command. Take out your books, take down your notes. I'm telling you what to do. And then D is exclamatory. Exclamatory is another word for exclamation sentences, where I'm shouting something out. I'm so excited. I'm so proud of you. And I need an exclamation mark. If you need to take down corrections, please take them down for me, and then you can move on to the next slide. Okay, let's do some practice to make sure that you understand what is going on. What I want you to do now is match the example to the correct type of sentence. Then you write down the correct table. So the table I've got on the screen here, you're not going to write it down exactly as it is. You will need to change the example column on the right hand side in order to make the table correct. Okay, so you've got sentence types, you've got declarative or statement. So I put both the difficult word for it and the easier word for it, just so that you're able to understand more easily. Number 2, imperative and command. Number 3, interrogative or question. And number 4, exclamatory or exclamation. So I've put both kinds of words there for you. Then on the right hand side, you've got examples. Now those examples are all jumbled up. I want you to work carefully to make sure you put those examples next to the correct type of sentence. So before moving on, you're going to pause the video. You're going to put a little heading practice. Take your table down, then press play again to get the answers. Remember to do this on your own. If you go ahead and get the answers before you do it, you're just cheating yourself. Practice now, so by the time we get to a test when you get back to school, you know exactly what you're doing and you've learned from any mistakes that you made. Remember I said when you're working in your workbook, mistakes are okay. They're there for us to learn from them. We learn from them so that later when we do a test, we can do better. So I want you to pause the video, take down your correct table. Remember the left-hand side stays the same and the right-hand side will change. You need to put those examples next to their correct sentence type. Pause the video and then you can play once you are done. Okay, here are your answers. Number 1 matches with the weather is getting colder because it's a statement. I'm just giving you information. Number 2 matches with set the table for dinner, please. I'm giving you a command. I'm asking very nicely, but it's still a command. Number 3 matches with do we need to buy eggs? It's interrogative or question. I'm asking you if we need something. And number 4, I've had enough for today. It's exclamatory. I've got an exclamation mark there, and I'm probably shouting it out so that someone would listen to me. If you need to take corrections, that's fine. Put your pencil in your hand, take those corrections. If not, give yourself sticks. You can give yourself a mark out of 4. Draw a little smiley face there for me, and I'll give you a sticker when we get back to school. And let's move on with the last bit of practice for today. Okay, this is your last bit of practice, and then we are finished for today. Right, to finish off today's lesson, you are going to write your own sentences. I've got 3 points for you, so let's go through them one by one together. First, write to command, question, exclamation, and statement sentences. So you're writing 2 of each. There's 4 of them, which means you're going to have 8 sentences in total. They must each be more than 6 words. I do not want grade 1 sentences. I like sunny days, or do we need toast? Okay, I need you to think deeper and I need you to add more words and make your sentences exciting, please. They must be more than 6 words each sentence. So you're going to have 8 sentences in total because you're going to have 2 command, 2 question, 2 exclamation, and 2 statement sentences, all of them more than 6 words. Okay, next thing, when you are done, write the type of sentence you have written next to it. So if I've written a command sentence, next to it, I'm going to write command, so that when I look at your books later, I can see that you understand exactly what's going on. And last point to keep in mind, remember each sentence needs to start with a capital letter and end with a full stop, exclamation mark, or question mark. Depends on the type of sentence you are giving me. Okay, when you're done with your work, show mom and dad, read some of your sentences to them, and be very careful with your spelling. If you're struggling with a word, go get a dictionary or ask mom and dad and learn how to spell that word. Alright, you can do it as soon as you're done. You can rule off because we are finished for today. Good job, grade 5. You have done a lot. In the past 2 days, we have gone over many types of sentences where we looked at dependent and independent clauses, and we looked at sentences that end with different kinds of punctuation marks depending on what type of sentence it is. So I'm very proud of you. I hope this revision helped. Please make sure that by the end of this lesson you got all the notes done and all the activities that you needed to do, and now you can take a breath and relax because we are finished for today. I'm very proud of you. Please keep working hard and make sure that you are getting all of your work done, or as much as you can.